A very good afternoon to all our participants, both speakers and viewers. My name is Yuris, and I'm happy to launch this first conversation in the series named War and Truth. I would have preferred to launch a series named War and Peace, or rather just Peace, not like Leo Tolstoy wrote War and Peace, but Peace only, or War and Truce, War and Ceasefire, but unfortunately we still have the ongoing war in Ukraine, the ongoing war of aggression by Russia, and as Ukrainians say, we have what we have. Let me first introduce the person who created this series of events, who stands behind Ukraine Foundation. It's Vice Chairman Mr. Louis Voiron. A very warm welcome in our studio. Louis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Georgis, and good afternoon, everybody. As Vice Chair of Ukraine Foundation, it's both an honor and a privilege to inaugurate our joint IWPR Ukraine Foundation War and Truth Conversation series with you this afternoon. I would like to warmly thank IWPR and the Ukraine Country Director, Maryna Bezkorovaina, for their partnership in making this series possible, and for their tireless work supporting independent media and civil society. This is a timely conversation as Ukraine faces an intensifying battle not only on the military front, but also in the information and cognitive domains. If active measures and reflexive control have curtailed allies' policy options from the outset, disinformation, hybrid threat, and foreign influence continue to erode resilience and trust. With Europe entering a period of political flux and mounting threats, with global attention divided across multiple theaters, the need to strengthen Ukraine's strategic communications, protect its media space, and bolster civil society has never been more urgent. Tonight's discussion, bringing together practitioners from government, intelligence, and the media, offers a rare opportunity to chart practical strategies at the intersection of security, communications, and democratic resilience. At Ukraine Foundation, our mission is to amplify Ukraine's voice in global policy debates and provide a platform where expertise and evidence translate into action. Our policy work connects Ukraine's perspective with international decision makers, develops actionable research, and advances democratic resilience through dialogue and strategic engagement. Tonight, we are welcoming an outstanding lineup of speakers to address one of the most urgent issues of this war: information warfare and how foreign influence shaped today's conflict. Maryna Bezkorovaina leads IWPR program on independent media and civil society resilience. She previously served in senior advisory roles with the Ukrainian government, a Britannic Majesty's Embassy in Kyiv, and with OSCE on information policy and international communications. Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Iryna Andrukh is a member of Ukraine's Foundation International Advisory Board. A decorated combat veteran and PhD psychologist, she has advised Ukraine's leadership in strategic negotiation and leadership analysis, and has supported international initiatives, including assistance to Afghan journalists. Ben Hipp is senior expert and Ukraine project lead at the NATO Strategic Communication Centers of Excellence, overseeing initiatives to strengthen Ukraine's resilience against disinformation. He formerly worked with the UK government on counter-disinformation and hybrid threats. Christodoulos Ioannou is Senior Fellow for Hybrid Threats, Counterintelligence and Cognitive Security at Ukraine Foundation. He brings extensive expertise from his earlier career at the Presidency of the Republic of Cyprus and in international counterintelligence projects. Last but not least, Georgi Svirko. He's the European Media Director at Ukraine Foundation, spearheading the foundation's outreach across the continent. He previously held senior editorial positions in European and Ukrainian media, as well as advisory roles with Ukraine's government on media strategy. This exchange will be moderated by Dr. Maryna Eleiti, our Vice President for Policy and a longtime USAID Chief of Party for Civil Society. We're very fortunate to have her guiding tonight's conversation. Maria, Maryna, Iryna, Ben, Christodoulos, and Georgis, we look forward to your perspective. Please join me all in giving them a warm round of applause. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Louis. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here. And I actually would start from a very general question about disinformation, because we all hear about disinformation, but we never think how dangerous it can be, how it impacts people's mind. And I will ask Maryna, in your experience, how disinformation is dangerous, or how it undermines people's trust in democratic institutions? And is there any means to help to counter disinformation?
Thank you, Maria. And before going into discussion, I would like to say, on behalf of the IWPR, that is a great honor for us to be co-hosts of these events, of this series of events, and we do hope that that will be first but not last discussion of the sort, and we are looking forward to the fruitful and long-lasting collaboration in this critical times for Ukraine. So, Maria, the question you asked is a very big one, and we have probably a very short amount of time to explore it, and amazing people in the room. But I will try to do my best, and will kind of offer my perspective to keep the conversation going, start the conversation going, and I'm really looking forward to hear what others think. First of all, I think we should start revising the terminology and probably moving away from the term disinformation, as it is, I believe, not fully adequate for the complexity of today's information environment. The term disinformatia, was coined initially by the Soviet military and intelligence services to deceive and confuse the adversary, and was focusing mostly on the false nature of the content. But many of the most corrosive campaigns of today rely on half-truths, selective leaks, manipulations, or even accurate information being framed in manipulative ways. So I would suggest, and I find it useful to revise the terminology. And I personally find the terms used, for instance, by our European colleagues, such as foreign information manipulation influences, FIMI, or malign information influences, they are reflecting the nature of this phenomena as much better. So destructive information influence is not about accuracy, but about weaponization, the deliberate use of information, true or false, to achieve destructive and strategic effects. What make these interventions successful today? I think precisely this, the hybrid nature being very, as one of my favorite researchers, Peter Pomerantsev, put it, being similar to mirror holes. You don't know what is false, what is true, what is manipulation. You are being deluded. And you are not sure what is right or wrong. What make them effective? They are very well targeted. They are very well tailored. Quite often, they are based on the actual issues that are relevant for the society, not on something that's been made up. We can bring an example many issues and many aspects, be it, say, anti-corruption, corruption for Ukraine, or mobilization, and other more pressing issues for the Ukrainian society. So they are very well designed, targeted, and they know what they are trying to achieve. And second, and this is the aspect that is overlooked quite oftentimes, the institutions are being governed and they are being administered by the people who make information make decisions based on information they consume, and the information they consume is varied. They are very subjective. These people can be targets by social engineering attempts, and they can be very well victims of disinformation themselves. So this aspect is rarely discussed, but when we talk about specific disinformation campaigns targeting officials, members of parliament, members of cabinet of ministers.
Увага! Відбій повітряної тривоги. Можна повертатися до звичних справ.
This is another aspect that makes disinformation campaigns so successful.
Now you
Thank you, Maryna. Actually, you raise a very important question: how to actually differentiate information, what is wrong, what is right, what is correct information. And I would refer to Iryna, how actually to check which information is correct, which information is wrong, how to help citizens actually to identify correct information, and how to build own information strategy to support citizens to receive good information and avoid manipulation or mailing information.
Thank you, Maria. So first of all, I should tell that if you want to find a difference between disinformation and real truth information, we have to educate our people. We don't have to be afraid to talk to Ukraine citizens and show them in real time the truth. And what I would also say, from or through real live stories, we can show the truth, because the difference between disinformation or propaganda and the truth, like disinformation spread a lot of lies. For example, like recently in 2025, Kremlin actors spread a false story that Ukraine's allies, France, the UK, Poland, Romania, plan to divide Ukraine under a secret peace deal. And the goal was simple: plant fear at home and suspicion toward our partners. So at the same time, Ukraine media, Ukraine actors, influencers, they could show the reality of this plan and actually show this peace deal, not just talk about it. So we need to build teams inside government and the military to monitor and counter false stories in real time. We need to strengthen coordination with NATO, EU, and tech companies to shut down hostile campaigns. Also, it's good to invest in media literacy to citizens themselves, become a line of defense. And of course, push for accountability with international rules that punish information aggression. Disinformation will continue to evolve, but if Ukraine and its partners stay united, transparent, and proactive, we can turn this battlefield of lies into an arena of resilience and truth.
Thank you, Iryna. Actually, what I'm saying, for me, it is kind of that disinformation or misinformation. It is kind of information wars. And my question will go to Ben. How information warfare complement or replace traditional military operation in conflicts in modern world, and whether there is line between civilian and military targets in information warfare, or actually both can be affected and the lines are blurred.
Yeah, well, I don't think information warfare is a new thing. It's been around for a very long time. You know, the Trojan horse was an example of deception, masterful deception. What's changed is the speed, cost, and access that people have, our adversaries have, to technology and information technology. So it's now a lot easier to communicate, to share information than it used to be. And there's another aspect of this, which is it's now highly integrated. So, and the Russians do this, they have had information. They don't look at it as being a separate thing to their military. They look at it as being part of the whole package, including cyber, including, direct force, space, now, undersea cables, the whole lot, which is, of course, what we would call hybrid. So, yeah, information warfare is not a new thing. It's just there's certain aspects of information warfare that make it a lot more difficult to monitor, detect, and counter. And the more effective actors use this as a component in coordination with other instruments that they have available, whatever they may be. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Another element, actually, it was raised by Iryna about media literacy, about need to talk to citizens, and I would maybe ask Christodoulos, what would be approach of the government, of the public institution, maybe intelligence, also how to support citizens or how to build information policy in the country. First, to counteract disinformation, to counteract different influences, for example, in elections, and also social media, because we now know that social media plays a huge role in disinformation or misinformation. They also play a huge role in elections and even in the daily life of citizens, impacting a lot of demands of population from the government, including the rise of, for example, nationalism or other elements.
First of all, I want to thank you for hosting me in this talk. I would like to begin from your last point about the social media platforms aspect. That if we consider misinformation and disinformation campaigns run through social media as part of also a cognitive warfare scheme by actors like Russia, we should first see what is the purpose. The purpose is to create confusion in order in some way among the population, not necessarily to lead or affect the direct policy-making decisions. So it's a more complex aspect, and the social media and the companies running social media should be introduced and in some way be accountable for what is hosted on their platforms, or do more to regulate content on their platforms and identify and maybe even take down such campaigns. And this should be a part of a holistic attempt by states, which will include all sorts, civil society, social media, intelligence services, or other government sectors. And a very important aspect of this is civil society, in order to maintain accountability and make sure that democratic rules are not overstepped just in the sake of protecting a society or country or a state from such campaigns. Which is, so in essence, it's a multifaceted procedure, let's say, that should be carefully designed and maybe even taken down at the educational level. Maybe now that we are able to see the effects of these campaigns, these disinformation and misinformation campaigns, maybe it should be introduced at schools, and moving onwards, like create structured campaigns and information campaigns from the state and all relevant sectors. Yeah, I hope this somehow answers the question.
Yeah, I will continue to ask actually, because I think you raised, for me, two important questions. First, again, media literacy population, but another, for me, regulation of social media. And I will go to Yuris, and we will still be back to you guys about regulation. Yuris worked for media, and actually from media point of view, how to ensure a balance between freedom of expression and regulation of different platforms, or even try to counteract with disinformation. What should be proper approach, and how to balance that all rights are respected and at the same time security is ensured?
Thanks, Maria, for this very interesting question. I will try to answer it, but when it comes to disinformation and media linked to it, I always recall the historic anecdote linked to Savik Shuster, a prominent TV presenter who worked in Russia, then some Western countries like Italy and Canada, and then Ukraine in his late career. And you know that story when he was deployed in Afghanistan from the Western side of the battle, and there were rumors or even facts that he took part in producing a false issue of Krasnaya Zvezda, Red Star, the main newspaper of the Soviet Ministry of Defense. And that false newspaper, fake news, as Mr. Trump would brand it today, was appealing to Soviet soldiers, asking them to surrender and to basically take the side of Afghans and Mojaheds. Was it disinformation? The answer is clear, yes. Was it bad or good? And here comes some hesitation. From the Soviet viewpoint, it was definitely bad. From the Western viewpoint, it was probably good, fighting the Soviet army that invaded Afghanistan. I will not talk about the other side, because we know that the same Red Star, Krasnaya Zvezda, was full of Soviet disinformation. It was a propaganda outlet, not a proper newspaper. But to bring back the situation to our days, where is the balance? Where is the right balance? And it's not an easy question, and there are no right and easy answers to this question. I would say that the first and foremost principle must be do no harm. And the freedom of speech is sacred, for sure. But it must be limited in the case of war. Of course, if Ukraine is defending itself right now, there should be some limitations. We know about the TV marathon, which has its own limitations when other TV stations in Ukraine were not allowed to go on air freely, or at least in the previous forms they had. And there should be some state-owned control in a warring country, no doubt. We saw that in the United Kingdom during the Second World War. We saw it in other countries. But where should we stop? Where should we stop protecting the freedom of speech? This is a very good question, and I would say it will require a very long answer. I always stand for freedom of speech, full stop. But sometimes this freedom is used by malicious agents, by the same Russian propaganda outlets to spread false information inside Ukraine. And finalizing my answer, I need to underscore the following. There are three target audiences of every disinformation campaign. In Russia, for instance, the main target audience is inside Russia. They constructed the whole system of the so-called Ukrainian neo-Nazis or nationalists running the country. They prepared their internal audience, the Russian people, to fight Ukrainians based on those false statements. The second target audience is, of course, the Ukrainian audience in the case of this war. And Russia did its best to seed misinformation from inside, to make people believe that Zelensky and all Ukrainian officials are fighting against their own people, that they were warmongers, that they were nationalists and neo-Nazis again. And the third part, the third audience, is about the third countries. There are so many stories in Africa and other countries of the world, in Latin America and in Asia, where Russia does spread false narratives about Ukraine, saying that Kiev had its coup d'etat, that there is no legitimate government in Ukraine, and Ukraine has to act accordingly, stopping this.
Thank you, Yuris. Actually, you again, we are back to a very important question about media literacy. I would ask maybe Maryna, do you think we have sufficient actors in Ukraine? I think we have good experience in Ukraine, but we also can use other experience to ensure media literacy. Or another element of the question, whether people would be willing to have such classes. I know in Scandinavian countries, they have it in universities, in schools. Is it possible to introduce it in other countries like in Europe, in Ukraine?
Thanks, Maria. Another very good question to ask. And I can go on and on about media literacy, and I actually not like a natural adept of this system. I kind of grown to understand it better and understand its benefits during the information warfares, cognitive warfares. And maybe I'll start my question with linking to what Yuris just said, and what we discussed before, that we tried to discuss how to tell disinformation from truthful information, and how to identify malign content from, say, good journalism, or public debate from something else. And I think there are different methods, but I think the backbone of each of this method is intent. What we need to ask ourselves, or rather not ask, because we are experts, but what of the consumers, what we need to teach consumers of the information, the general public, to ask them the question, what is the intent? Is there any final objective that the kind of distributor of this information is pursuing? And in order to be able to identify this intent, people should be equipped by the tools, by the systems, by the methodologies, which is something that media literacy provides. Traditionally, media literacy, and I understand this is not just Ukraine case, but mostly in Ukraine, I can speak as I observe this debate. Media literacy is perceived quite a lot as something that is more related to kindergartens, to children, something I will even dare to say not serious, unserious, not important issue. And I would like to suggest a little bit different optics. And our conversation today is about hybrid warfare, information warfare. So I would like to suggest to look at the media literacy from the perspective of security, and try to apply to concepts deterrence and resilience. Again, something that is mentioned in the topic of our discussion. What is deterrence? Deterrence, and we have Ben here, who is as a NATO person, would be able to correct me or explain these categories better. But in simple words, deterrence is the system of actions that are aimed to kind of prevent your adversary from doing something, limit their capabilities, and to kind of downplay effectiveness of their operation. So this is something that you do to, dispower your adversary, your enemy. And, applying this to the information landscape, this could be, as an example, could be, say, blockage of some online media resources or some specific media regulations or, cyber operations conducted on the territory of adversary. When it comes to resilience, which is all about building your own capacity and about the capacity of the society, if you're speaking about society resilience, to recover from the attack, to make sure all your systems or your stakeholders operating effectively and are protected. So this is about building your own resources. Again, if we looking at it from the perspective of hybrid, cognitive, information warfare, media literacy, and the whole concept probably needs quite a good rebranding, is, I would say, probably the best and the most effective tool. It often narrowed down to just news literacy or information literacy, but in fact the competency framework that media literacy offers is much wider. So it's and target audiences that media literacy work with should be much wider, include all the voting population. So because the media literacy framework includes not just detecting fake news, but also equips individuals with digital literacy, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, healthy dialogue practices. And all this combination of the skills are crucial for societies such as Ukraine, given the identity-related challenges posed by the war. The possibility for the people to participate in a constructive, meaningful way in discussions about history, identity, memory, cultural diversity. This all is impossible without information literacy, being able to interpret the landscape, discourse in a constructive, in a healthy, in a literate way. These skills are important. Are there stakeholders in Ukraine? I would say yes. We have quite a good examples of, schools and universities, civil society actors being quite active in this field. I think the mistake we are making is donor community, or those who, everyone who is interested to see results in a short term. We are eager to see the results of the media literacy efforts in a year, 1 year, or 2 years, or 3 years time. But everything that comes to cognitive change, the behavior change, has in fact much broader horizon. So we need to allow more time for this habit to evolve and for this muscle to grow, if you like. I would say that the early days of Russian invasion to Ukraine was probably the best success case study for the media literacy efforts, how society was able to kind of react quickly, identify manipulation, offstand information influences. I think this was one of the good examples how these efforts that been implemented by various organizations for a few years before that were not in vain. And I would say even now the Ukrainian society is quite good in demonstrating media literacy skills. Not comprehensive, not all of that, but some very basic, but enough to kind of protect them from malign influences. And again, we must remember that, as I said at the beginning of our meeting, the best corrosive campaign are those who are designed around actual issues that are still relevant in the society, be it economy, be it mobilization, be it recovery and access to recovery sources. So this is not just a media literacy problem if we're speaking about vulnerability of specific segments to these attacks, but this is a probably wider problem, and we need to look at the holistic perspective and see where the problems are. Again, be it economy, be it veterans affairs, and see how these specific issues can be used by malign actors. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Maryna. Yuris, I see we had some comments in the chat. Can you maybe read them, because I don't think we all follow it. You have switched off your mic. If you need some time, then we can move to another. Yeah, we have a comment. To what extent can IE tools help identify or counter disinformation? Provide specific examples. Actually, I would take this question, and I can ask any of you who would like to answer the question. You see also it's on the screen. Who is comfortable to take this question? It's about artificial intelligence.
I can talk a little bit about it, if it's okay. So unfortunately, AI cannot identify all disinformation or misinformation because it has kind of a stop or block for it, but it can help you to compare information. So, and make some patterns or check the words. You have to make your own conclusion. AI is very helpful and useful to gain as much information as possible, but you have to analyze it by yourself because it depends from which perspective you will ask AI, it will respond to you. But if you ask, oh, hey, AI, for example, ChatGPT, tell me, being an expert in disinformation or counting misinformation, could you tell me your conclusion? It's one perspective. Another, if you can put some media information already and ask, can you compare it and with official statements from Russian government, from Ukraine government, from EU government? Then AI can be more useful.
Thank you, Iryna. I have a few comments and I just read some. Kudos to Maryna. Malign information is so pitch perfect. Attention, we are listening you. I don't know who is this comment. And also this question, how do we counter malign media interest? That seems to be an urgent challenge. I think it is also a good question. Maybe somebody would like to respond to this. You are free to actually respond. Maybe Christodoulos.
Yeah, well, it's again, it's a complicated question because if we're talking about malign media, the way I understand it is that disinformation spreading through media. So if we're talking about traditional media like television broadcasts and so on, that would be easier to regulate in a sense that if a state already has the necessary mechanisms to counter disinformation campaigns, then it would be able to regulate traditional media and maybe even revoke licenses or impose some sort of sanctions or even fines and of that sort. But if we're talking about social media platforms and other electronic media, which are more, let's say, more difficult to handle, I would come back to the accountability of the social media providers and the companies running them. Also, the state should be able to intervene and regulate social media and other internet traffic, let's say, and happenings. And yeah, it would take again a holistic approach, like it would involve NGOs, civil society, state, security services, but all should be stopped where interfering in the freedom of speech, in online freedom of speech, which again is a tricky area as to where does national security or information protection stops and where does the freedom of expression stops and where does national security or state security starts. So it's a very complex issue that doesn't have a straightforward answer, at least in my mind. And my research lately seems that this is exactly what especially Russian and to maybe not a lesser, but to an equal extent, even Chinese or even Iranian or even other actors are taking advantage of that. The online environment is very hard to regulate, and they're using even if the state or some authorities take down some channels or groups or whatever, they take them down, then it will give them another, let's say, tool to say, oh, you're claiming to protecting democracy, but look, what are you doing? You're actually preventing free speech. So it's a bit of a complex issue that, in my mind, it doesn't really have a straightforward answer. But the answer is that it's maybe not in a trial and error approach, but a step-by-step approach rather, in order to try and regulate. And anything we do, it should be along civil society, education, let's say, and so on. So yeah, it's a complex and multifaceted approach with, in my mind, at least, no straightforward answer. I know it may not be the most straightforward answer on my part, but I hope it sets some context for.
Yes, thank you. Anyone who would like to contribute, also welcome. But we have another question about National Disinformation Agency, which is established in Ukraine. And the question whether it is time for other European countries to build national disinformation agencies. Maybe, Ben, you can respond to this.
Yeah, sure. I think the Ukrainian experience needs to be viewed in context, which is, being at war, being in an active conflict under martial law. I do think there is a benefit in having part of the government or a government agency which owns this particular problem. I'd be wary of setting up a disinformation agency in normal times, because you only need to look at what happened in the US as to how that became controversial and became politicized. So I do believe that nations should have a component which is tied in with security and defense, but certainly needs to be able to work across government, because this is a cross-government problem. And it's predominantly focused on security and defense, but not everything, because you do have civil emergencies, natural disasters, crises, etc. COVID, for instance, where you still need some kind of capability. But the trick is having someone who actually owns it, is well connected to the political level, is resourced as well. This is a key challenge, as you'll see from the report that came out, I think, today from the European Centre for Countering Hybrid Threats, where they've polled most of the nations that contribute to their centre, that are members of their centre, and the feedback is, well, disinformation or counter disinformation is not taken very seriously. That said, it's quite a young, it's quite a young field, quite a young community. So I think there's room. It's maturing. More nations are, like the UK, are looking at specialist capabilities. Moldova, for instance, set up one of their communication centres, counter disinformation centres, about 2 years ago. Heavily borrowing from the Ukrainians in terms of the mandate, roles and responsibilities. So it'd be interesting to see what effect that had on the integrity and outcome of the Moldovan elections. So yeah, they need a capability, but I'd be wary of calling it counter disinformation. It needs to be resourced, and it needs to be able to work across government. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more comments. Public awareness is crucial indeed. Introducing such terms through education could contribute to future resilience. Also, Eileen Vasilina said that they do training on this subject, a course that we delivered in Parisian business schools, media and society. And also we have another question. Should we regard the marketplace of ideas as a public good? I understand that some ideas which will be good for the society, but also serve for the security purposes. It's a difficult question. I think somebody from either Ben or Christodoulos maybe can respond to this, or maybe Iryna.
I can try and take it if nobody wishes. And it's good to see Yulia in the audience, and she is really good at asking provocative questions. Thank you, Yulia, very much. That's another one. Would be curious to see what other colleagues think, but I still think that the marketplace of ideas is a public good even now, because if we deviate from a space where citizens and people, stakeholders, are able to exchange thoughts and opinions freely, what makes this different at the backbone of our society from the societies we are trying to fight and ideas we are trying to to hush away from. So I think marketplace of ideas is a public good. We need to that as reality showed us, we need probably better think of how do we safeguard it, be it, say, I don't know, something like educated transparency, when each member of this marketplace of ideas is able to tell good journalism from the, active measure or malign intervention, or be able to tell influence agent from the blogger and malign information or malign media interest. So which requires education that we discussed. Society, a marketplace of ideas where government, when imposing regulation, explains clearly reasons why, and explains clear criteria, and each member of this marketplace of ideas, each citizen, is able to assess content and is empowered by the tools and mechanism to assess this content, assess information, and to be able to understand the intent. So yes, I think marketplace of ideas is still a public good. We need to think, how do we protect it, and how do we the rules we introduce for this marketplace of ideas. But I think we must protect it as a public good and as something our societies should keep to be able to exchange, debate, and evolve and grow respectfully.
Thank you, Maryna. Maybe somebody has also a comment to that. If not, I have still a question. Maybe I'll ask this question to Iryna. How is ensure, or can media literacy can actually counteract with disinformation? Whether it's sufficient tools, or still disinformation is something which is difficult to teach people to identify. I mean, just ordinary people. And also it is from psychological point of view, whether people are ready to check information, whether people are ready to look whether this information is correct and not somehow misinterpreted.
Thank you. So it's kind of very long question and response has to be, but we need to understand that different information is different for different target audience. So for older people, younger people, it must be different information. So at the same time, we have to teach different people differently. So we cannot have one cliche for all types of people. That's what we could see in east part of Ukraine, for example, when the target was older people who used to live under USSR. So for us, it's important to teach people on different levels, in the families, in the schools, at the universities. So it has to be like expanded program on each level of our society. But we also have to understand that for us in real modern time, it's too much of information. It's like, sorry, it's like a trash. So people don't know how to sort it anymore. So, and create very transparent media who people can trust, or old media with good reputation, and present it more and more would be much more helpful. As a combat veteran, I have learned that war isn't not only fought with weapons, it's fought with stories. And Ukraine has shown the world how decisive this battlefield can be. And also, I would love to mention that, for example, for Russia, when they start to spread disinformation, first they send stories, and then after they send soldiers to the places where they create the story. The lesson is very simple. Wars aren't won by weapons alone. Even the strongest armies can't hold a people who refuse to give in. We see that the human spirit in the ultimate front line. If we defend the truth, stay united, and support those who resist, no invader or disinformation campaign can win.
Thank you, Iryna. You actually forced me to ask another question, and I'll ask this question to Christodoulos. Whether different agencies, particularly intelligence, considers this point, which actually was raised by Iryna, about that current wars, that armies, before sending armies, usually countries use disinformation. Whether international security systems work with this and try to consider possibilities of new attack, of new aggression using disinformation. And for example, using Russian disinformation, which is now in different countries used very heavily. Is it somehow analyzed and projected for the future potential wars?
That's a very, very good point, actually, a very good question. Well, as the 2014 Russian invasion and illegal annexation of Crimea showed us that, yes, the Russian disinformation machine prepared the ground by spreading disinformation and conducting extensive disinformation and misinformation campaigns prior to actually sending what is now termed as Little Green Men, which was actually not an official scale like the 22 invasion, but it can be viewed as a precedent, to traditional war activity or a preparation or preparing the ground. But what is very vital to take into consideration is that it's something that should be viewed as a case-by-case thing. For example, Russia is known to use these activities or this tactic, let's say, and strategy prior to military invading or interfering in bordering states to it. But in the case, for example, of European Union countries, it's like, for example, I will speak about Cyprus, for example. This is not an indication of an invasion. For example, if we see increased disinformation campaigns in Cyprus, it's not necessarily a preparation for an invasion or a military activity, but it is a hostile activity nevertheless. So security and intelligence agencies and services should react and should take care of this. And actually, what I'm very big proponent of is that counterintelligence should be used as a tool, and it's actually my current research as well, that counterintelligence should be used to counter hybrid activity and especially disinformation campaigns. And for example, if we analyze the methodology of any actor using hybrid threats and disinformation, be it that they use, I don't know, maybe cultural organizations or, I don't know, philanthropic, let's say, institutions or so on, maybe to fund or transfer funds and provide funding to their agents or actors, then counterintelligence agencies should step in, and they are very, very, if not the most important, one of the most important tools a state has, at least in peacetime, to counter such activity and even preemptively stop it. So I hope it provides some sort of an answer, or if you would like to ask for a clarification or something.
No, thank you. Actually, I was observing for a long time elections in different countries, and I have a feeling that Russia uses disinformation and all these pro-Russian candidates or TikTok candidates, I would call, to actually bring to the power in countries which are now Western or democratic countries, to bring our own ally. And then to destabilize these countries, or to have these countries friendly to them without military intervention. And my question, first, I think I will give a choice to answer this question to you. How to protect European countries from such interference? Because even in Germany or other countries, we have these right-wing political parties, which are still, they are sometimes maybe not pro-Russian, but sometimes they are pro-Russian. And if they come to power as majority, they would shape different policy, including internal and also external foreign policy. How to prevent this and how to protect like security in European countries, that such political forces do not come to the power. I mean, do not supported by Russia and then come to the power. You can select. You can. Few of us. You can answer. I just think it is question for all of you. Can be. Ben, I think you didn't have a chance to respond.
Sure. I mean, if you're talking about specifically foreign interference in elections, I think
yes.
We're a lot better than when I say we, the West, Europe, a lot better than we used to be at identifying coordinated campaigns. Now, is there a long way to go? Of course, but this is a relatively new threat. The scale of this has only become a challenge over the last 5 to 10 years. So there's obviously got to be some catching up. And to revisit the question about AI, well, yes, AI will provide a lot of tools for automation on monitoring and detection, whether that's the technical aspects or the more behavioral stuff like narratives. So I think nations are a lot more aware of the challenge and the threat towards election integrity. You look at the Swedish Psychological Defense Agency, who were kind of quite far forward in ensuring that they got everyone from the government together, education, culture, and said, right, where is this going to go wrong? And therefore, where are the bad guys, the adversaries, going to try and exploit those vulnerabilities in order to undermine the outcome of the election? Because that's ultimately what the adversary is after. They don't really need to interfere. They just need to throw doubt upon the result, which is why the 2016 interference by the Russians into the US election has caused so much controversy, because they're still trying to work out whether it actually had any impact or not. Well, them just trying was probably enough to throw a spanner in the works. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be done, but most nations have come a long way in looking at this in a very holistic way and saying, right, what can we do to ensure the integrity of these elections? Over.
Thank you. We already, Maryna.
Just a quick addition, and I am being really careful not to start conversation about Moldova elections, because I understand there is lots to unpack at the moment, and the result is very good but quite interesting. But something that I want to share, like the thinking that I had and I want to share with the group, and maybe some of the colleagues have something to react. But the question that I had after the results, does this mean that hybrid means of interventions are becoming less effective? And can this result mean that hybrid means of influence are losing their powers, with the Moldova demonstrating that there is a way to counter it. There is a way for a nation to go around and protect their integrity. So does this mean we kind of reach the point where we are able to offer a coherent and effective response to these threats? I don't know the answer yet. Would be good to hear if anyone has. And if yes, we are at this point, what does this mean for the like a global process, for the wars, for the Russia-Ukraine war, for the Russian ambition in wider Europe? So yeah, this is a thought that I was getting. Like, have we reached the point where hybrid means of intervention are less effective than they used to be to achieve political goals?
It is a good question. I think our colleagues, maybe Christodoulos or Ben, can respond.
I'll give two quick answers to that. One, we don't know.
I knew you would. Thank you.
We don't know how much of what the Moldovans did in terms of preparation led to the outcomes that they had. So the first thing to do is to go back to it and say, right, what did they do that worked, and to do that properly. Because at the minute, there's an awful lot of people marking their own homework and saying, yes, it was a success because we did things properly. There's no guarantee that anything that the Moldovans did in terms of resilience or media literacy had any outcome whatsoever on the impact or outcome on the elections. So yeah, we need to understand that. The second, on does this mean that hybrid's over? No, because all that will happen is these threats will evolve. Why? Because it's really cheap for them to evolve, and it's really easy for them to evolve, because it's much cheaper for authoritarian states to spend money on interfering in elections than it is on missiles and aircraft carriers. Over.
Any more comments?
If I may elaborate on this topic a bit, just a couple of days ago, French President Macron said they had underestimated the Russian influence in terms of misinformation and disinformation. And he even mentioned an invasion by Russia. But that invasion was, in fact, infestation by bedbugs. You know, there was a campaign that the whole city of Paris is infiltrated with bedbugs, and it's really dangerous for tourists to travel there. I think it illustrates perfectly the good Russian saying to make an elephant out of a fly. And Russians are very good in this. They do create elephants out of flies. In France, they tried to create elephants out of bedbugs. And to some extent, they succeeded. I think the best way for Macron, for the French authorities, like for the Moldovan authorities, is to show the real scale of the problem. Again, going back to the so-called neo-Nazis in Ukraine. Are there Nazis or neo-Nazis in Ukraine? I think the answer is yes, but there are just dozens, maybe, if not single persons. Not millions, as the Russian propaganda tends to inform other peoples and nations. In fact, there are millions of neo-Nazis in Russia itself. Under the influence of Russia's propaganda, they behave like Nazis. They want to conquer Ukrainians. They deny the very right of Ukrainians to be an independent nation. And this is the main task, to demonstrate the real scale, that one or two bugs in Paris does not mean the whole city is infiltrated, the whole country of France is infiltrated with them. That some neo-Nazis in Ukraine or in Germany, some members of far-right parties that you, Maria, mentioned, there are neo-Nazis in Germany, we cannot deny this. But again, it's dozens, it's hundreds, not millions, as the Russian propaganda wants to say. Europe, the European Union, is not ruled by gays and LGBT people only, as they want to inform their audiences. So the real task is to show the scale of propaganda, the scale of lies and flies, if I may.
Thank you, Iris, for your comment. Anybody wants to add something about that? Because question, Iryna.
Can I say something? So it's very hard to fight against lies because it doesn't have any borders. So it's just imagination. As much as you try to convince liars to tell the truth, it's not possible. The only way how to fight against it, just bring the truth, show the facts, cut the rumors. That's it.
Thank you. We are already working a little bit more than an hour. If you still open to continue, we can, or we can a little bit wrap up. And I think I have like final question, and I would like to all of you answer to that. What we as expert community, I would say, or because everybody working in different field, but still we have own expertise and we can bring it. What we can do, or what expert or public institutions responsible for that can do, I mean, first steps, first to improve situation with this disinformation. We already talked about media literacy, but maybe something else. And also to protect security of countries, because disinformation, as we already learned, it is a first step to bring insecurity to the country. First steps.
Try to be transparent with your citizens, and then you will get 100% of trust. And then people will trust you and will not trust your opponent.
Thank you, Iryna. Maryna, Yuris, Ben.
I mean, next steps. I'll answer this by answering one of the comments that's just been put in the comment thing there, which is, are we able to measure the success of some of these things? That's something. There's two things that we need to get better at. One is attribution, i.e., explaining, articulating who is doing something bad, who's behind something like a campaign or FEMI, whatever, and what we think they're hoping to achieve. Attribution, and also measuring how well we are at countering FEMI or identifying FEMI, because as I said earlier, there's a lot of organizations that are just saying we're great at this without actually being able to substantiate why or how they're being great. And it's not impossible to do that, but I think we should at least try something that the Swedes certainly looked at, which is if you are in the business of countering disinformation or counter FEMI, how do we know whether we're actually being successful or not? This is quite a fundamental question. Thank you.
I can try and answer. I think, Maria, you asked about immediate steps. I would say, from my perspective, and we are talking Ukraine, right? We are not talking globally or other regions. From perspective of Ukraine, I think from some neighboring countries as well, the components that we need to kind of do in immediate steps, we already have most of it. We have education solutions, we have regulation solutions, educational solutions, we have regulatory solutions, we have strong civil society actors, we have quite a good media organizations. We have in some countries such as Ukraine, Moldova, agencies in place who are responsible for this line of work or counter-disinformation business. What we don't have a coherent plan or coherent strategy which would explain, unite each of these actors and which would explain the role, explain the objectives. And this is the kind of curse for most of the Ukrainian both government and civil society, the race for the and constant search for the silver bullet, one solution to solve all the problems. This just does not exist. We need a coherent strategy, coherent plan, which will involve all of these stakeholders, all of these pieces of solution, and we need to make sure that they all are evolving simultaneously and equally. Regulation, education, civil society, media organizations, this all should act in coherence, and this is what is missing at the moment. So starting bringing stakeholders for this kind of dialogue start to put this mapping in action and start developing joint, not isolated strategies. I think this is what's needed.
Thank you, Maryna. Christodoulos or Yuris?
Yeah, well, I would take Iryna's point and say that if we overexpose and promote the truth a bit more, will ultimately be beneficial in countering these hybrid threats and disinformation. And this could partly explain Moldova's success. I mean, at some point, at least. On the other hand, what should be done is we should act preemptively, then reactively, and holistically, because we need to have in mind that this disinformation campaigns and hybrid threats in general are evolving. They are never the same. They're constantly changing, and they thrive upon this plausible deniability, which makes it a lot harder to tackle. So we should bring together all facets of state, civil society, and media in order to tackle it case by case.
Thank you, Christodoulos and Yuris.
Well, I will support Christodoulos and support Iryna's viewpoint, actually, who said that we need to counter lies with truth. Again, I will repeat myself, show the truth, show the real facts, the real figures, show the real scale of facts. It's very important. You know, I had a short-term contract with a UK-based anti-misinformation company, which recently went bankrupt. And they, in one case, wanted to debunk the story of the so-called Istanbul agreements between Russia and Ukraine. In early March 2022, in the first months of the war, there were negotiations in Istanbul between the two countries, as you know. And they wanted really to say that there was no agreement signed, no draft signed, no nothing. And my question to them was, how do you know? Have you been to Istanbul? Have you been inside that room? So do not overact, do not overreact, but show just truth, nothing else.
Thank you. Actually, I think we can close this discussion, and what I actually put for myself: be fair with citizens and educate citizens, promote the truth and show the real face, develop strategies, and I would include even cross-border strategies in this regard. Thank you all for your time, for your contribution. I think it was interesting discussion, and I believe that we are only starting this discussion, because it is a huge topic, and I hope that we will continue. We plan to have next discussion in a month, and we would be happy also to hear from public what issues would be interesting to you, and we would incorporate it in our talks to bring benefit for us, for you, and for other people. Thank you.
Thank you to our viewers who put their questions.
Thank you.
It was great being with everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.